This episode, we are full on spoilers.
Hi, I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Bill, also known as Matt Stagger.
Jenn, the Keeper of the Chronicles.
And I'm the Geeky Hippie. Welcome back to What the Adaptation. As you see, we've got ourselves a guest here, probably one of my favorite people in the Wheel of Time community. Lauren, how you doing?
So good. Sorry, I jumped the gun on that. I thought I was
okay.
next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I thought he was too.
Glad to have you on. I always like to introduce my guests. Everybody doesn't know this is Lauren from Unraveling the Pattern, and he's also the man who did our animation on this channel, both versions of it, for which I will always be thankful, and he did that on Bill's channel with me, so thank you for that as well. You're pretty good at it. You've done a...
And mine too.
And Rebecca's.
Oh, wow.
And you did John's over at What Up. Who else did you do? Anybody? The puppets?
I've done some of theirs, yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I can't remember them all. But I love to do it.
You've been very generous with your animation. It's made Wheel of Time look much better online. That's all I know, is it makes it look good. So here we are. We're discussing the Season 2 of Wheel of Time as an entire body of work, not just episode by episode. So our questions are going to be a bit different this week. First of all, what did everybody think of the season? Just thoughts in general?
Yeah.
Loved it.
It's such a step up. I mean, it is a 100% step up from season 1.
That I'll give you. I think it could have been better than what we got, but I'm still overall positive on the season.
You sure about that?
Yes, I'm overall positive. I might nitpick, but, if I'm picking nits, that must mean that the big flaws just aren't there, right?
I suppose.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll go with that instead of you are absolutely laser focused and anal retentive about your issues.
Pedantic. Pedantic.
Bill.
Get it right.
Just say,
So
even you admit
Speak
it,
it.
Glenn. You know.
Yes. So, our first question tonight is best or favorite cast or crew member. Who do you think should get an award? And we'll do one person one at a time. We'll start with you, Rebecca.
You're going to make me go first. You don't understand. I have a list that's like a page long.
Well, then we'll do the first one and we'll talk about it. And then Bill.
I got more than one too. So.
I've got
all
5.
of them.
Maybe we should go through
all
who
of them.
shouldn't get an award. No, I'm
No,
kidding.
honestly, the cast is so good. But like in my mind, when I was sort of like figuring out who I could potentially talk about, I have like a long list of people that I felt like had like standout, like dramatic scenes that were just incredible. That's not a short list. And then I had like a shorter list of people who are generally like new actors in season 2 that really nailed the characters, but didn't necessarily have like hugely dramatic moments to showcase them necessarily. But like, yes, Donal Finn, one of them, definitely. And then everyone else that I didn't even put on the list is just like great actors, but like didn't like, into the S tier, I don't know. It's impossible, but I'm allowed to just say one now. I have to just say one.
To start.
Fine. All right. Well, whatever. I'm going to start with Rosamund Pike just because I feel like people overlook her. She had a very dramatic season, and she acted the hell out of it. So there you go. I think people don't mention her, so that's why I'm saying her first.
What do you think of that, Bill?
As for me, Pike was on my list, but I think my number one, the real standout and shining star of the season, has got to be Madeline Madden. I mean,
For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
oof, just some beautiful work there, especially her work with Zela Mendez-Jones is just outstanding.
Yeah,
If she doesn't at least get a nomination, I am going to be very upset.
Agreed.
Yeah. 100% right.
You took my person. You took my
I'm
person.
Just pick someone else. Just pick someone else. They're all awesome.
Okay, so she was my top. My second
Yeah.
one is going to be Natasha O'Keefe as Lanfear for sure.
That was my second, so we're even.
That's my number 2. So I'm gonna go with her, and then
She's got to be on there.
pass on to Lauren.
What about you, Lauren?
I'm the same. I have a long list, and it's hard to pick just one. About Rosamund Pike, by the way, every time she's on screen, she elevates the scene for everybody.
Mhm.
She has this commanding presence about her that requires everyone in the scene with her to raise their level of acting. It's always just a delight to see. She says so much with just a look that
Yeah.
I feel currently the rest of the cast can't quite pull off just yet. Maybe Natasha O'Keeffe, but
Yeah.
I do feel like her acting is on another level, and it's just such a delight. That being said, she's already been taken, so I'm going to actually go a little bit different direction and say, if we're talking about awards, like actual awards, I think Sharon Gillam, the costume designer,
Ooh,
Yeah.
absolutely deserves an award and should be
Killed it.
nominated for an Emmy. I'll be frustrated if The Wheel of Time has no Emmy noms again. And I
Mhm.
think costuming, sets, things like wigs, and
CG.
makeup, CGI, even, yeah, they really elevated the quality this season, but in particular the costumes.
De-aging.
They just knocked it out of the park, and
Really good. Yeah.
I don't
What
want
was
to
that?
brag, but I've touched some of those costumes with my own hands.
Oh,
And I got to interview her and talk to her, and like I touched Rand's red coat. It was like
That's
Way.
super cool.
oh man, no way.
So I have a lot more to say about all that. I've been holding off on saying anything until the strikes ended, and now
to
I'm
be
like
hard.
so behind on my channel that it's going to be a while before I get all that out. But it was such an awesome experience to see the dedication and love behind the scenes. And at the time that I was able to do that, the actors were on strike, so I got to meet like the crew. I didn't get to meet the actors, but they just care so much. And whether or not they've read the books, they care, and that is so visible in every detail, especially in the costuming. So she's my pick for awards.
Good choice.
I might have griped a little bit about certain motifs in the Sean Chan clothing and
A
costuming.
little bit.
But it was a little excessive after a while, though. But I didn't really I don't have a complaint with the costuming. The costuming is by far one of the best, production end, of things. But the CG was pretty good too, I think, especially the de-aging that they did on Rosamund and Sophia. It was just Sophie Okonedo. It was just really good. But my pick for who should get an award, I had originally said my MVP for the season back when we did episode 8 was Natasha O'Keeffe, but when I rewatched it this weekend, I'm walking away with Faraz. It's not the Shamel we get at this point in the books, but what we get I think is so much better and so much more believable. It's not mustache twirling, even though he's got the mustache to twirl if he wanted to, Faraz as a Shamel was just brilliant. But I agree with everybody about Natasha O'Keeffe. She was just top notch.
She is.
Who would you say next, Rebecca?
Well, I have to say Kate Fleetwood should be mentioned, because I would not have predicted, I knew going in how good she was because I've seen her in other things. And in season 1, I loved her, but I still didn't anticipate how much she would actually make me love Leandrin, because I do, which is ridiculous. She's just so good, and I'm like riveted by her every time she's on screen.
I can't argue with that. Did you have another one to add, Bill?
Well, yeah, I was absolutely going to go with Natasha O'Keeffe. She's so good that, at one point when Rand first channels and her reaction, I thought, is Rafe swerving us and that Celine actually isn't? I had that moment where she had me convinced by her reaction to Rand channeling that, okay, maybe they're pulling a swerve and that's not Lanfear at all. So, I mean, that's how good she was. But I got to give it to Donal Finn jumping into a part like that.
Oh yeah.
Especially one that the entire fan base is heavily going to scrutinize.
True.
Heavily. That's a terrifying prospect, and I think he did it, and he brought that sense of humor that I think Matt was missing in season 1 that
Mhm.
really made it Matt for me. So
Absolutely.
Donald Finn is my Matt.
I agree. He's my Matt too.
He was my third on my list. Jen, what about you?
He didn't get any, like, hardly much screen time, and I don't know, his story is still a little bit different than the books, but I can't there a certain je ne sais quoi quality about Perrin. He every time he's on screen, something about his face is completely different than season 1. I don't know his entire presence. I feel it. I can't really put my finger on it, but like he's shifted somehow in a good way. And I'm like, okay, this is a different Perrin. I felt like season 2 was an entirely different Perrin. I felt more actually culture shock from Perrin's just like presence on screen than a completely different actor from Matt. I don't know why. I was like, this is like a new person. I don't know. I'm the only person that I know that thinks that. But like, yeah. Anyway, I would have to say
Maybe it's the
think the entire-
costume. Sharon Gillan again.
Yeah,
She
it could be the
I don't know.
costume.
I'm just
Honestly,
throwing out there.
I think the entire cast got more comfortable in their own
Definitely.
skin as their characters over the break, and you can feel it from the very first shot of the very first episode. You're like, Rand feels more. I don't know,
yeah.
Rand. He's more there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Every single character, I think they just got more comfortable, and I think Marcus Rutta absolutely stepped up his game as Perrin. So good call.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's one of the things that's hard for me is we haven't necessarily seen the range of some of these characters yet, because in my opinion, season 2, the standout moments were like Zoe Robbins with the accepted test, Madeline Madden as a Damane, like those moments just really stood out to me. And it seems like they had better lines to deliver better performances, in my opinion. And I feel like Matt was absolutely Matt, but I just want to see him be Matt more because I want to see him get more lines to do that. I feel the same about Perrin, and Rand had quite a bit of screen time, but I still feel like he didn't have any like really good, like strong character moments the way that Nynaeve and Egwene's characters did in season 2, at least for me. And so to me, it's kind of like still up in the air about how they are as actors overall. I want to see them get some of these sort of darker and heavier scenes the way Zoe and Madeline did, personally. So Zoe was another one on my list, especially the end of episode 3. Just killed me in the best way. Like,
Tears, man.
Really did such a phenomenal job there. And then, unfortunately, she kind of got put on the back burner for the rest of the season, which kind of was hard for me because she did. It's almost like she peaked too early in season 2. For me.
I think that's why she doesn't get as much credit too, because she was on my list also, because I agree, episode 3, she's just so good. But then that was her big episode, and then after that she's still good. She still has some fantastic scenes, but then other people step up. So but I on what you said about some of the actors not necessarily having like as intense opportunities to showcase what they can do. I mean, I agree about that. And that's why I think some of the people I had on my list were sort of like in a different tier in my mind, right? Because I can, well, I won't say any other names because it's not my turn, but I just agree with you that, it's, there are some that I can tell are great actors and are right for the role, but we haven't seen them peak yet.
Right. Well, and you mentioned Kate Fleetwood. Like she has had some of the best moments to be able to be amazing, you know, and I want to see, like Yosha get those kinds of moments.
Yeah.
And I know they're coming.
He will. Yeah.
My next person that I was going to bring up, it might be somebody you were going to say, Rebecca, because this person, they joined the cast this season. They haven't really had any big moments for great acting, but she absolutely personifies Elaine, and that's Kira Coveney.
Oh, yeah.
She is Elaine through and through. And I love it because Elaine is one of my favorite characters in the series. I know that's not a popular thing to say necessarily. But getting her right was something that, that I was worried that they wouldn't do. I had my own mind on who would have been a great Elaine. But the moment we got the leak for Kira Coveney, I was like, yep, that's it. That's it right there. They've got her. Was she on your list, Rebecca?
Yeah, she was in that category, that second category of not people I would put up for an award, but someone who I think is perfectly cast.
Yeah, exactly. She personified the character perfectly. The bits that she did have, it was like, this is Elaine. I fell in love with her so fast. And what a phenomenal writing job they did to bring her into the cast so well. And so, like, they integrated her in, and it was like, now she's one of the team. It made sense that she's there, you know?
And they did a good job at making you like her rather quickly, too. You know, they give you reason to dislike her. Here's this stuck-up princess. Oh, she's willing to take the punishment for this? Okay, you know, and it just, they really wrote her really well.
Yeah.
Agree. Anybody else you want to bring up on that before we move on? Rebecca, start with you.
I mean, I think we covered all the major ones. I have, you know, I'm not going to get into all my ones who I feel like are great casting, but because the question was about awards, but I wrote them down some, but no, I'm good.
Anybody else?
I just got to throw Mira Sayal out there as Varen, just because I love her so much as Varen.
She's like the Kira Coveney too, like, and she was in that on my list in that way as well. Perfect casting. Didn't have like a hugely dramatic moment to highlight, but she's perfect for sure. And I think Ayula Smart is also, like, I love her as Avienda, but she's got to have a chance to do some more stuff.
Agreed.
I do want to throw out props to Johan Myers as Patton Fane, though. Especially in that last episode, episode 8, I thought he was really fun. He's just fun in the role to begin with, but
I mean, really, we just need more of all of them. We just need more Patton Fane. We need more Hopper. We need more Hopper.
Everyone. Yeah. Give him an award to Hopper.
And I've tried tracking down the name of the dog that played Hopper, and I have not had any luck. We just have a name.
Somebody knew it. But
someone does know that, but I don't remember. But it's out there.
There was a list of 5 or 6 dogs that I found, but they were not specified which ones it was. But if
I swear Rafe said the name at some point, and I don't remember where. In one of the interviews he did. What is it?
It's KALUPINKA.
Oh yeah. That's right. Yeah.
I'll put that on the screen.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, because I love Hopper so much.
So let's move on from performers or cast and crew members to a favorite scene. What is a scene that you particularly loved in this season? We'll start with you, Jen.
I appreciate you.
It's like, I don't want to.
She's saying, don't call on me. She's like, don't call on me. Let's go, Jen.
God, okay, fine. I'm gonna go with like something that's probably not like everyone's like go-to, because I'm thinking of obviously the Egwene scene and everything like that. I'm gonna go with little moments. Moiraine drawing water from the well. And just her showing her daily, because you don't see that in the books, right? You don't really see her like not have her powers at all and having to do mundane tasks. So having her not have any sort of reference material quite so much to fall back on, as she's like drawing water, and just the panoramic shot of the camera pulling back, and you see like just how far she's had to walk in the sweeping vista. It was a very I know we're going to be talking about it later, but it did remind me of Keira Knightley, Pride and Prejudice, her on the hill, and just the sweeping, grandiose landscape behind her. Anyway, but yes, I'll probably say that as just because you know why? Because there's so much rewatchability. It's complete. You can take that out of context and not know anything about the Wheel of Time, and show that to someone and be like, look at the production value, look at how beautiful this is, look at how it draws you into wanting to know more about this character without her even saying anything. You can put it on mute and watch it at work. So I probably will say that.
Okay. How about
I love that. And to piggyback on that, a lot of people say, oh, the quality difference from season 1 to 2 is so obvious. And that's one of the like early scenes, and it's immediately like on location. They're not, it's not on a set. It doesn't feel
right.
like COVID was an issue, you know, like
Yeah.
right off the bat, the quality just improved because of that scene and scenes that followed it, in my opinion. So I love that answer.
Good one.
Bill, you got one?
So nah.
I mean, I got like 100, but there's one that my little fanboy heart just loves so much, and it is literally behind me. Matt speaking the
Yeah.
old tongue
Oh
and
yes.
coming into his own after a
Mm.
season of literally being dragged through the mud, the sweat, the tears, the betrayal. I mean, you know, and to have that moment of clarity for that character where he
Mm.
realizes he has potential to be something other than horrible.
Mhm.
And you can hear it in that shout, that moment. I mean, you know, when he's holding me as a makeshift Ashendare. Give me some
Mhm.
props here.
Right.
I am Matt
Mhm.
Stagger.
Yes.
I love that moment so much that there's nothing else in the season that quite grabs onto me the way that does my fanboy heart. So sorry.
Mm.
No,
Love
don't be
it.
sorry. That is a
No,
good
that's
one.
amazing.
No,
Yeah.
can't go wrong. Like Jen, I'm gonna go with more so little scenes. I didn't want to call out like a big scene, like a dramatic scene. There's some easy ones to go for there, but some of the stuff I really liked was the Elaine and Egwene bonding. You know,
Mhm.
especially the scene over the drinks. I mean, I was amused by Elaine brewing liquor from the air, basically. I enjoyed that. Um, it's little scenes like that. Even the stuff with Elaine and Nynaeve later on and later in the
Yep.
season,
Mm.
seeing the beginnings of how their relationship is. Button heads, but still there for each other at the same time. It's just, I don't know. I really like that. Rebecca?
Yeah, so my main answer to this that is not a cheat, because some of the things I want to say on this are kind of cheating, but this one's not a cheat. The scene between Moiraine and Lan, which ends with them reinstating the bond
Mm.
in the finale, was really
Okay.
beautiful.
Really
I love how
Um,
that was so intimate without being romantic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the way they did that, and it came across that way where it's just plutonic, but it's intimate,
Yeah.
you know, at the same time, and I love that.
100%. Like, when do you see a relationship like that on screen? Not a relationship like
No.
that does not get any kind of focus in stories. And so it's beautiful. And they've just gone through this whole season with so much pain and strife and bitterness. And, so to see them come back together, um, and the acting from both of them was really incredible. Again, both of them do really a wonderful job without words sometimes. Well, obviously there's a lot of words in that scene, like leading up to that moment. But at the end, when they're bringing the bond back, there's no words, but you see these little expressions that just tell so much. And it was very like my big one of the big emotional moments in the finale. So I had to mention that one.
Mm.
That's a great one. I am going to cheat. I'm just going for the big ones.
Cheat.
Go for it.
No, I have a long list of scenes that I just love, but obviously the moment when Egwene touched the pitcher
Mhm.
was
Mm.
so hard to watch, but it wasn't even that I loved about the scene. It was the juxtaposition of that with Rima Sedai and her warder, and then
Yes.
Rima being captured,
Ah,
and then Nynaeve and Elaine finally like holding hands. It was the combination of those things that just
Mhm.
impacted me. That's probably the most heavily impactful scene for me of the entire season. It just
I-
really, really hit me. And it had so many key things without words,
mhm.
and I was just so impressed. Madeline Madden's acting when touching the pitcher and her sort of half relief, half dread, realizing that she did it, combined with Rima, like just sort of screaming as she was captured, and then Nynaeve wanting to help but not being able to, and Elaine reaching out and kind of holding her hand to steady her. Like, it all just was so beautifully done to me. And Rima in particular was such a surprise.
I love
Completely
her.
unexpected.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite minor character of season 2. Just
Yeah.
shocking performance and wonderful, unexpected experience. I loved it.
I agree with all that. That was basically one of my cheat answers, everything you just said. So yes.
Yeah. I could have picked a Damane scene, any of the Damane scenes that Madeline had to do. It would have been too easy, but I left them for other people to take. But see, at the same time though, when I rewatched it this weekend, I fast forwarded through every scene of her collared because it was just too viscerally unpleasant watching it. The first 3 or 4 times I watched each episode, I didn't want to sit through it again. So we'd get to Madeline and Renna, boop, 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 fast forward, just click, 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 because I just had to get past it. There's one other scene that I got to mention, and it might be the shortest scene in the season, but that last moment between Lanfear and Moghedien is just priceless.
Good.
The moment she's walking down that hallway, you just knew something was wrong. And yeah, it was great. And what a great introduction to Moghedien. I'm looking forward to that in coming
Softly, softly from the shadows.
He was great.
Yeah, I love it.
So, did anybody have a hated scene? This one's not as easy to come up with when you loved the season. So I'll be mean and I'll start with Lauren.
Oh,
Lauren,
I have hated scenes. Don't you worry.
Okay.
These are absolutely nitpicks, like you mentioned earlier. Like, in general, love the show, love the season, and it's such a stupid nitpick, but it absolutely drives me insane that Rand had a heron mark on his scabbard, or not on his scabbard, on the hilt of his sword for one scene and one scene only. It annoys me so much. No, it wasn't even the one that was burned into his hand. It's the scene when he. It's the scene when he walks up to Turok, and Turok is like, "Ooh, a heron mark sword," and you can see on his back there's a heron on the hilt.
Yeah,
it's never there in any scene before or after that. It's the only scene they put in, and it wasn't there when they shot it because they released a promotional image without it and added it, I think, in post later because. They realized he walks up, has a sword on his back.
How do they know? How
does Turok know that it's a heron marked sword? Well, he has to recognize there's a heron, so they added it to that one scene. And one of the reasons I'm so upset about it is because I speculated about it a lot beforehand. When we were breaking down teasers and talking about trailers, it was like, wow, why does Rand's sword suddenly have a heron? Did he get a new sword? Did he get it added on because he became a blade master? Like there was some speculation about that. And so I was really looking forward to the payoff of this Easter egg that turned out to be poor direction and bad writing. And that scene, I know it's silly and nitpicky, but it drives me nuts.
I think
it's done that a million different ways.
It's bad writing, like you said, because they just didn't have any other reason for him to know he had a heron marked sword. That's all.
Well, I mean,
he should have just drawn it.
Draw it, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And then they reinforced by zooming in on the heron on the blade, which is the one that burned him later,
right?
Yeah.
To remind the audience, there's a heron there, so that when he burns his hand, it gives you that connection.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where they probably didn't think about it until after they shot it.
Didn't. Yep, definitely not.
And we thought about it before season 1 came out because the very first time we saw the sword was that publicity shot of it laying there on the ground. Right. And I remember people on Twitter bitching that there's no heron on, no heron there.
Right. We were speculating they wouldn't do the branding because, the repeat beats, you can't brand his hands and then later brand his arms. So they'll get rid of the hand brand. And it turns out they did it, and I'm glad they did because I think it's awesome. But also, who grabs the blade, by the way, when they stab somebody?
That's why I assumed the one on his that he got, the branding he got in the show was from the hilt.
Yeah, because he's pushing it like
he grabs the blade like this to channel into the blade to heat it up.
Oh,
there's.
I thought it was from the back.
I have a replica of it.
Yeah. In the actual sword they use, there is a section there where it's dull on the bottom.
I don't know if you can see this. So this was made by somebody for me. This is not like an official one. So they added it to the hilt here. But you see this heron here. In the show, it's sticking out. Like it's a piece of metal that was.
So that is bevel.
when he stabs it, here this is like etched in, but in the show it's kind of beveled and stamped.
Yeah, there is
And
a
he
section where
grabs
you
it
could
like
do
this and pushes it in,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
results in him getting the brand on his palm, like right there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Anyway,
that. There is a sword technique where you actually do use your sword that way. I looked it up because
really?
it was bugging me too.
Hmm.
So I actually looked up some sword techniques, and there is one particular sword form technique that you can use by grabbing the blade, and it
Yeah.
has a section that is dulled before
Right.
you hit the
Ah,
blade.
yeah.
Right.
So your hand
It's not
fits there.
it's not sharp
Yeah.
there. I know what you're talking about in terms of that section, but yeah.
And the way I justify it is he was channeling into the blade to heat it up
That makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Yes, he
to
was.
kill him. And so that's how I justify it. They just shouldn't have had the heron on the hilt at all. Or they should have had it down from the start. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Or they
Yeah,
could have
no,
just
agreed.
not branded him. But I mean, yeah, whatever.
It just
They
popped,
did.
a minor little complaint that popped into my head just now that it bugs me every time I see it is when they're channeling and they're drawing the power in, and the power is coming from an outside source. That's never how Jordan described it. The power always came out of them. He basically described it as like in front of you is where the power, it was the weaves start. And here we're getting Rand pulling in when he goes to sever the knot tying, that was shielding Moiraine. He's drawing fire in from the torch that's right there that Lan was holding. And that kind of bugged me. And we see similar, like when the Aes Sedai were channeling to rain, to rain on the Foregate. And we saw it when we're in episode 1 in the pilot in season 1. Moiraine was pulling from
The wine
around.
spring, yeah.
And that's just not where the power is really described by Jordan is going. Not that I remember.
I'd have to look at that because I mean, one thing I will say about this in the show is it's very consistent. They do that all
Yes.
the time. And Alana even explains it when she's doing her little tutorial in the kitchen. She's like, you can pull the water from the air or from the water in this glass. Like she talks about pulling specific type,
Elements, yeah.
elements of the power from different sources in the environment. So she's specifically instructing them to do that. And it's consistent. So they're doing that. It's not a mistake. They're doing it very deliberately.
And Leandrin, when she put out a fire that Nynaeve sends at her, she like in front of her, she pulls the fire into her, which is how men put out fire with Saidin. Women smother it with, when they use Saidar. So there's a lot of metaphysics changes.
Yeah, well, I mean that great. I don't care because like some of that stuff bugged the crap out of me. But anyway,
biggest thing, and Jenn might be mad at me for taking this because she went off about it when we recorded episode 8. I'm still pissed about the crossbow bolt being shoved through Elaine's leg with the fletchings.
Oh God, I did go. Yeah, I went through a whole thing about that. How they have Elaine standing at the end and with all of them showing her foot on her leg.
What's even funnier is when I was watching it today, and Elaine is sitting there with the bolt through her leg, and she's got her boots on. And then when Nynaeve stands her up and they start walking away, Elaine's barefoot and her boots are nowhere to be seen on the ground.
Like, how did she make it up the tower?
That too. So
Your
that whole thing with
love.
I'm like, they show her standing there 10 toes down on both legs at the end. I'm like, at least show her like being healed by somebody off screen or something, like maybe a little bit like.
This is one of my nitpicks as well. Nynaeve just got the short shrift in episode 8. She should have done something. I would have liked her to channel and help or something.
I think it makes sense story-wise. She's so overpowered from season 1. And then at the beginning of this season that, we need her to struggle. And this block is a struggle. And think about what she just went through before she sort of spaced out and wasn't able to do anything. She experienced death from another person, but she felt it because she was wearing the Adap.
Yeah, that's true.
So her being completely off her game and unable to even touch the source, I kind of like it.
I get that.
It's a struggle.
I get.
Yeah,
I
get.
I'm with Bill. Like I think that the choices make a lot of sense, and you got to also remember too, like if we go back up a little bit, like the betrayal from Leandrin, watching what happened to Rima. That is some serious trauma when like she is the one Aes Sedai who got Nynaeve, like really respected her. Like she's like an aspirational figure that Nynaeve could actually look at an Aes Sedai and go, oh, I could be like her. Like that's awesome. And then that happened. So I don't know. She's very traumatized. I'm with it. But yeah, she should have taken the fletching off the arrow.
She was also
Yeah, I mean, at the very least,
let's do that.
Break it off.
Let's just get that
off.
off there.
Traumatized by what Sita basically made her do to
Oh
Sita.
yeah. No, I mean,
made to be Saldam was pretty
Nynaeve
traumatic, I think, for her too.
Trauma City. I'm totally fine with her not being able to channel. I think that is appropriate. But yeah.
So did anybody else have any hated scene that I didn't call on?
I haven't said any hated scene. I don't have any hated scenes because I don't. But I'll mention one scene that that is my nitpicky scene is when it's not even the content of the scene, but when Perrin and the Aiel are seeing Falm, the wash that they put over it to make it look like nighttime. It's I can't see it at all. It's horrible. And I'm like, how do I even know that they're looking at a huge body of water? You literally can't tell. Like that's the whole point of the scene is that they're seeing this huge body of water and they're like blown away by it. You literally can't tell they're looking at water. It's horrible. That's nitpicky, but
I can't think of a worse example of day for night since the 80s.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah, it is bad.
Yeah. And so it's only in that one scene, but that one did legitimately really bug me. So
yeah, no, I agree. That was not the best. I have a couple of just tiny ones that I kind of want to get the group's thoughts on because can I say something about the one power thing though, real quick? So I agree that it doesn't match everything that Robert Jordan described, but I also agree with Rebecca that they've been very consistent. And I actually think one of the things that I was hesitant about in season 1 was how they were handling the one power with the Aes Sedai. But one of the things that I really respect as the show progresses is that they are intentionally trying to separate how the Aes Sedai channel from how other people channel. Whether it's Nynaeve and her bursts of power, or Egwene deciding not to use her hands, or the way Rand is being guided to channel by Logain, those sorts of things. They are intentionally trying to make some clear differentiations between these things. And I'm here for it. I think my personal opinion is you don't have to pull from the elements that the Aes Sedai do pull from the elements. Because Nynaeve didn't when she burst with power and heals people, she just like, boom, it comes from her.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's an intentional choice. And I think as the show progresses, we're going to see those lines in the sand between the different channelers. I can't wait to see how like Aiel Wise Ones and their channeling differentiates from everyone else's, or Ishamael when he channels, like his flows are so precise and clean.
Yeah, it's almost mathematical.
Right. So anyway, I actually am really impressed with the production design on that, and especially because they increased it in season 2 to be the colored weaves and everything, which is brilliant.
Yeah, that was.
I do like that.
Huge.
But anyway, as far as hated scenes go, like everybody, I don't hate anything, but there were 2 scenes that I'm still kind of on the fence about, and I kind of want to get your opinions. One was Matt's mushroom trip thing. I liked it as a concept if it's not replacing Flicker or Snakes and Foxes stuff. But if it is replacing those things, I have a problem with it. And then the other one is Swan and Moiraine kind of breaking up and having Swan doing like a 180 on Moiraine really drove me crazy.
That was my thing to talk about for the changes category. Like that was my main thing I want to talk about. So that was not in my hated scene because it's like, I think we need to see what comes next for me to decide if there are things, because there are things in here that don't fully make sense with what we've seen, but then I'm like, okay, but are there some other layers and pieces in here that we haven't seen yet, in which case I'm reserving judgment on it.
That's exactly right, because like when Loial was stabbed by the Shadow Logoth dagger at the end of season 1, I was like, let's see how this plays out. Now I hate that scene because they never addressed it and it was stupid and they should have never included it to begin with.
That's a nitpicky thing.
That was going to be my thing. Now too.
Yeah.
So when it comes to Swan and Moiraine, for me, it's all about how that resolves. And it feels like it's a setup for something to come. If it turns out it isn't, I'll hate it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah. And on the Matt thing, I personally think it might be replacing Flicker, but I definitely don't think it's replacing the fins. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know that we're ever going to get a flicker scene like I think that might just be gone. But I do think we're getting the fins. I really do. Or at least like one trip through the doorway, at least, that we see.
That's kind of the big debate on Twitter right now, isn't it?
I know.
Matt's dagger versus the Ashendare, right? Like
I'm so like, sorry to like just jump all over this, but like I am like, no, that is not the Ashendare. That is not the weapon. I'm like, what are you people? Are you crazy who think that? No, not a chance. Like this is like foreshadowing, guys. He had to have his like iconic weapon because they're revealing him as a hero of the Horn, and that is his iconic weapon. Like Brigitte has her bow. He had to have a weapon like that, but that's not the one. It's like foreshadowing. I'm like, I don't understand. Like it makes me so frustrated that people think that's it.
I'm just like, do you honestly think Moiraine is going to let him keep that thing?
No.
She has been explicit about he is not to freaking be near it. She said that in season 1. She is gonna yoink that away from him the first chance she gets. If she doesn't, then I am gonna be angry.
I just want to like strangle everyone who's saying that. I'm sorry.
Speaking of that thing, I'm still puzzled. That first person Matt stabs with the dagger on a stick. You know, that Sean Shan, the Sean Shan drops to his knees and rips his helmet off. And when I saw him rip his helmet off, I thought, okay, we're going to see him like burning up or something.
The black pus or whatever from the book. Yeah.
And it's too dark and too fast. It's like 3 frames as he's falling, and it's like almost entirely black. I don't think it's supposed to be the same. I think they're changing it a bit. I don't think they're doing
properties are definitely different.
It leaves me wondering what the point of the whole blocking of ripping his helmet off. It's not a big thing. It's stupid as hell. It's the most pedantic of my pedantic things. I'm just puzzled. I'm like, why did he rip his helmet off?
And I agree. It makes me feel like maybe there was more to it. Maybe they shot more. Maybe they showed the guy like writhing or being affected, and then they just cut it. Because that whole finale feels like there was more to it that was cut, in my opinion.
Oh, I definitely think so, yeah.
I think they realized that they could get a better shot with the Horn of Valir box on the white of the corruption. They were going to do it for him, and then they went, you know what? If we do the black on white, it is going to come across much better. So let's just cut that.
Could be.
That makes sense.
I mean, that's my headcanon for now.
That works.
I'll probably go with 2 things for Lauren. One is my thing, actually, since I've already spoken about the Nynaeve and the arrow thing, I was gonna say Loyal just walking up being like, hey bud, and talking with Perrin. I'm like, can we please have like a cutscene of him at least being healed by an Aes Sedai or whatever? Because at this point I'm so very confused about what the dagger can do. It can melt locks when it wants to, other times it may not, I don't know, and then sometimes it can like be really, really bad, and then sometimes not, and then some people can be like affected by it like Matt, but Loyal isn't. Like maybe it's Ogier powers. That's totally believable. But I'm like, can we have some
just a throwaway line?
I would like a line.
Like oh yeah, I feel a lot better that I was healed. I
actually have a theory on that.
Okay, please.
My theory is that while the dagger is slowly infecting the person, it's also feeding off the darkness in that person. The darker that person, the stronger that dagger is, and the more damage it can do. Padan Fain hadn't had it long enough for it to build up enough of a corruption charge to affect Loyal.
No, it's that Loyal has 0 darkness in him. I like your theory.
That too. Yeah. I mean, it works both ways.
Yeah, the darkness in him. Okay. I can buy that. I'm using that. I'm still in it.
I actually think it's a good theory, because to me, like what I think is that the whole way the dagger works is like there's a certain amount of corruption. It's just a little subtler. It's not like, oh, you're immediately like corrupted into disintegration. But that there's obviously some corruption to it, because if you look at Rand's wound, like there's like swirls of black in it.
Cinnamon swirl,
yeah. So there's obviously something there. I hadn't thought about it that way, but I think it makes sense. And I mean, I could just say that basically, like, it can corrupt humans, but it can't corrupt Ogier because Ogier are too pure or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, think about the books. We don't have Ogier dark friends. They don't exist.
Too pure for this world.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I started from. I'm like, there's never a story about an Ogier dark friend, and I'm true. I don't think they have any corruption in them. There's nothing for it to feed off of, and that's why it didn't insta kill.
Yeah.
Quick
I
thing about the
legit
Finn
love
and
that. Sorry.
the Lauren's question to quickly answer, I think it could potentially be a replacement for both. If so, I'm gonna be okay with it. Because if so, they gotta cut some things. If so, I'm okay. The Swan and Moiraine thing, I agree with you. I need to see more of it. However, there is someone in my household whose Swan is their favorite character in the Wheel of Time. And seeing that was very difficult in my household, not knowing that was coming for my household, especially because it was that was hard. So
I remember hearing about that.
So that really affected my household. So I'm going to probably say I'm going to wait on that too. So right now it's horrifically bad, very, very bad, but I'm going to be like, maybe there's more to it. If not, then it's a killer.
Yeah, I gotta
Especially for someone else I'm very close to.
I want to talk about it more, but I'm saving it for my other category because I have a lot of thoughts on it too.
Yeah, and I feel bad that I kind of hijacked the next section because this really does segue into that pretty well.
Yeah.
As to the Swan thing, we'll get to that, but I do think that we are not going to get a more focused flicker sequence than what we've gotten.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that it's replacing either or of the Finns, but I'm also not sure we're going to get any Finns other than Donald. You know, the Finns might just be a step too weird, you know, because this show's falling into the assumption that the audience is dumb. At least that's how I feel. It's been treating the audience as the non-book reading audience as not being as smart as other shows sometimes treat.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
I don't see that at all. But
I think they've written down, but I
don't. I mean, look at the subtlety of the mirror scene. You got to pay attention to actually notice it's not Matt at first, and then that image gets replaced with Matt. That's how you know it's not real.
Notice, by the way, that one of those people is wearing the costume that Matt is wearing in one of the ebook covers?
Yes,
so
I
cool.
did.
No, I didn't.
So it's like an alternate Matt. I love that. So, and I think it's a woman. I think it's a woman too.
Yes,
which is another metaphysics lore change that I'm totally down with. The idea that sometimes Matt's a woman is so cool. Like, yeah. See, so I'm okay with it replacing Flicker. I was holding out hope all the way to the bitter end for Flicker. I thought somehow they were going to fit it into the finale when we didn't get it up to that point, and when they didn't, that was a disappointment for me. But for me, Snakes and Foxes is a little bit more of a deal breaker, and I don't know how you pull it off and make it good, because I agree it's out there and it's kind of a lot of budget for a fairly small thing.
What I'm thinking.
But it's so integral to his character. He needs to get that fox head medallion somehow.
You don't show him.
He needs
you don't show
questions answered.
No. You got to show him. You got to show him. You got to do it. Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to pull it off, but to me, that's like a deal breaker. But we'll see.
I kind of we're spoiling stuff, right? Are we allowed to spoil stuff?
Yeah, we got
spoilers.
Full spoilers. Okay, because I'm just saying. Here's the deal: if you're going to have Moiraine and Lanfear go through a doorway, you got to know what is on the other side of that doorway to some extent. If you're just like, it's just a doorway and it just melts, what is that? Nothing. You have to do that. How are you going to cut that? You can't.
They
don't even know
they might
that
cut
they're
that.
going to do that. Do that.
No. Look at what they're doing in this season with Moiraine and Lanfear, like creating a more personal relationship between them already. And like, I don't know. You don't do that if there's not a collision course literally in their future.
Not to mention, Lanfear literally kicked Moiraine through a doorway.
Yeah, just pushed her right out of the doorway.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. I've had a theory, since this is full spoilers, right?
Yes.
I've had a theory for a while that Swan will probably die early, and that Moiraine will take her place with Egwene in the Broken Tower, because they need Rosamund Pike to be more front and center. She's a producer. She's the big cast member, and I don't love that idea, but I feel like that's where they're going with Moiraine.
Okay, say that's the case. What is Egwene then later? So, like, you're taking.
I see her as
just a regular today.
Being the salad art.
Okay.
Hamlin.
Okay.
That's what I mean. I think she would take Swan's place as
She would be
Egwene's sort of mentor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that doesn't work for me
No,
because as long as Rand is alive and out there, Moiraine is not leaving him. Egwene is not more important to her than Rand. She's just not.
I have to.
That's
Ever.
very true.
Not-
And the way
not
they've
even
set it
close.
up,
Yeah, that's a good point.
I do really want to see Lanfear Moiraine go through a doorway.
It's happening.
I don't think that if Moiraine is gone, that she'll be gone for as long. I think she'll maybe
Right.
be gone for a season at most.
I don't even think
Because it is Rosamund Pike, but
I think it all depends on what Rosamund Pike wants. Because, there's nothing to
That's
say
true.
that she necessarily
fair.
wants to be doing 8 seasons in a row. That could be her choice, that she doesn't want to do that. So,
and she is still a producer, so
Yeah.
she can still be involved if she wants to be.
right. So I think that would be a her call thing, how long she may be gone. But I 100% think that Lanfear and Moiraine are going through that doorway. And I think if you have not shown anything on the other side of that doorway, it doesn't have as much impact. I think you got to
True.
show it.
Agreed.
Will that be the end of Natasha O'Keefe on the show?
No, I don't
Um,
think so.
No, because I don't think they need to do
Sindane.
Sindane. Just don't do Sindane.
Yeah, I'm not
Don't do
sure they're
that
going to do the
nonsense.
the transmigration of souls. I'm
Mm-mm.
not sure they're actually going to do that
Except with
in
Moiraine.
Because-
that same way.
Because they
kinda
kind of
have to,
said,
Moiraine.
well, maybe, but
We kind of got Moiraine already, so do we?
I think so. I think Shamel is.
Oh, Ishi's
kind
not
of-
dead. I could talk about that for an hour.
You definitely
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, he's not dead.
Well,
No, he's
no, but
Warden.
do you think Fares will be back?
Yes.
Or are they
Probably.
going to be giving us somebody that's Moradin, that goes by the name?
I don't think they necessarily have to. I think they've sort of incorporated some of the Moradin-like qualities into
Yeah,
his
early.
character early. He's more Moradin-like than he is a Shamel, like really.
Yeah.
He just is called a Shamel, and they've already kind of set up with Natasha O'Keefe that like she like regenerated herself. Like there was no, it was like instantaneous, right? Like Moiraine,
True power healing, yeah.
yeah.
There's
So
but-
I mean, I don't know that we're ever gonna get like, hey, this is a same person in a new body. We may just
Yeah,
not. It may not
that's-
happen.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
too
think we're gonna get
complex.
Yeah.
That being said, it gives them the ability to do that if they need to. That's the brilliance of it. If they need to
Yes.
recast or something, they can.
Right.
Which
They
is
If
can
it,
actually
Doctor
pretty
Who
great.
it and
if it turns out
regenerate.
that Faraz isn't available, then they have that option on the table or whatever, or for whoever, any Forsaken that they want to with it. But I kind of think they don't have to. They could just not do it.
Can I say one other argument for showing the snakes and foxes or the
Sure.
realm of the Finn is there was foreshadowing in season 2 of Matt using the spear as a key to open a door to get himself free.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that's a huge spoiler, but that's a huge way that he gets out of the Tower of Genji later is with his spear. And so
It's
I hope it's not the Shatter
foreshadowing.
Logoth dagger
It's
spear.
foreshadowing.
I hope it is the
No.
Ashindare that he gets, but they put all the clues in there for
Yes.
that eventual
Yes,
payoff.
yes. It's foreshadowing.
I think we are getting them. I don't know to what extent. Like I said, they may show Matt entering the realm, show the realm, and we'll get a glimpse of maybe one of them, but we may not get full on what they are right away. And then we'll have Matt coming out and,
They can
Go
do it.
from
I
there.
have faith. They can do it.
I
I'm
think
sure
so
they
too.
can. I just think budget wise, that may be the way to go.
Hmm.
It's just sort of, we get pieces of them here and there until we get the total picture.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, alternatively, they could just be humanoid. They could just be like humans.
I think they're yeah. They
More
can,
elven like.
Yeah.
Yeah, something
They
like
don't have to go. I mean, I think it's hard to picture them
Only with
anyway, but
snake fangs,
it could be
Yeah.
subtle.
fox ears.
It could be
Yeah.
subtle to where like the decision they made with how to portray Loyal, they dropped some of the aspects because they don't want to CG him completely. They want to do an actor so they can afford to have him on screen. Because if he's all CG, they can't afford to have him on screen all the time.
Right.
So they changed, like he doesn't have huge eyes and whatever, stuff like that.
that. And the same reason they used wolf dogs.
Yeah.
They feel smaller and it can be a little frustrating, but hey, we get actual animals acting on
Yeah.
screen, which is so
Yeah.
much better.
I
Right.
have
And you
no
don't
complaints about the wolves.
then you don't have
Hawkeye's
to
still the
do
best boy.
stupid season 8 Game of Thrones stuff where you're just like, oh, let's just not have those in there because they're too expensive.
Well, it was so expensive, the dire
Yeah.
wolves. So.
Yeah. So anyway,
So you guys want to
I don't know Where are we
changes
at?
in the books.
Yeah.
Changes from the books. And how might they... Max wasn't clear on when he wrote this one down if these are changes you like, changes you dislike, or just changes that you want to
Changes
highlight.
we want to talk about, I guess. I don't know.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And how might they course correct if needed? I didn't really have one that I wanted to highlight because there's a lot of changes. So I picked something that kind of just bugs me a little bit. Where's the Horn of Ilir?
I wonder that too.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it'll show up, I guess.
It's like collapsed into itself or something. I don't know.
it goes back into the case magically.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Well,
maybe it does.
it was Amarisu, or however you say her name, Amarisu.
Yeah.
She
Amarisu.
She
I just got that. Sorry.
she has one of those endless empty pockets. She's like
Right.
the spider pig. It's like it fits in your pocket. You know,
She's got a bag of holding.
Yeah, she does.
Pocket of holding. A sleeve of holding.
Yeah.
You know, I think Brigitte is going to be involved with that somehow. As a matter of fact, I like the idea that if and when Brigitte gets ripped out of Teleron Riyadh, that she brings the horn with her.
That'd be cool.
Ooh, that would be awesome.
That'd be cool.
Do you think
Because
it's
how
gonna
else
be the
do
same
they?
actress
I
we
guess
saw?
there's also a possibility that like
No.
Rand or somebody goes into the world of dreams in the flesh and gets it. Maybe. But
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
Or Perrin.
I'm kind of thinking it was just a
You're too strong.
a
No.
cool flourish for the scene so that like Matt wouldn't have to hold it while he was fighting, and that it's just gonna be physically still in foam. Like once they're gone, it's still there.
Okay.
I think we're kind of overthinking it a little bit.
I think we'll
It's
see it back in
possible.
the box.
Yeah.
what's in
It
the
was
box?
just one of
What's
those
in the
little weird
box?
things. So, Rebecca, you had
Yeah.
we've already
Yeah,
sort of
let-
touched on it.
Let's talk about the Moiraine and Swan stuff, because like this is a pretty big change, and no matter how you look at it, it's a change. And I think I wanted to talk about this in terms of like potential future impact. So like I've thought a lot about this, and like there's all sorts of theories about like basically how much Dice Daymar was going on in these scenes. Like how much stuff was maybe understood that wasn't said. You know, was there any understanding among these characters that we, the audience, are not privy to? And I think there's some different possibilities there for maybe some partial, you know, secrecy. But to me, there's a few things that kind of stand out about all of those scenes that raise question marks for me, that make me think, okay, there's more here than what is just presented. I mean, the title of the episode is actually a big part of that too. Like, because if that stuff is not Deus Daymar, there's not a lot of Deus Daymar in that episode. It's just not. Like,
Right.
so it's not a great title for the episode if that is not involved in it. So that's one thing. I think, okay, so another thing that to me suggests there might be more going on is Swan is talking to Rand, and she's going on about what the Tower Law says she's supposed to do to him. Though there's something about the way she's saying this that to me sounds like it's not what she wants to do, right? She doesn't want to just and it was not what she wanted to do. This was not her plan all along in the show, to just, you know, bring him in hand and, you know, keep him in the tower. So if she really did want that, if that's really what she was trying to do by the end of this episode, is put him in a cage, she had to have changed her mind at some point. And so when did she change her mind, and why is the question? And like Rand says to her in that scene, this isn't a conversation, like you already made up your mind before you saw me, which if he's right, so did she decide she wanted to put him in a cage before she laid eyes on him, and why? Like, what would be the reason that she would decide that? She doesn't line up with what she says to Moiraine about like she's there to like not let Moiraine deal with this on her own. They're going to row together. You know, there's things that just aren't lining up there. So you could make an argument for, okay, when she sees how untrained Rand is, that she's like, oh, this plan of letting him go free is terrible. We can't keep, so I have to change my mind now, and I have to bring him in. But then that doesn't line up with what he said about her having decided before she laid eyes on him. So like, there's just things that don't match there. And then the decision to put Rand and Moiraine in a cell together with one Aes Sedai there makes zero sense if you really don't want him escaping. It doesn't make sense. It's just not a good plan. So if it turns out that Swan really decided that she wanted to hold on to Rand and not let him go, that will bug me more than anything, that she put him in a cell with Moiraine, his co-conspirator, and one Aes Sedai. Just one.
Well, on that episode, I pointed out, I'm like, in no way has Swan shown that she is so dumb as to not realize she needs Rand out in the world, because there are prophecies that she is aware of he must fulfill.
Yeah.
She knows that.
I'm just saying, when did she change her mind and why? Like,
I don't think she did.
Right.
Okay.
So there's just.
Are we talking about like her being like manipulated? Like, are you talking about like that kind of stuff?
No, and not necessarily, although that's one possibility to consider, right? Like, does she not really like do this thing in her senses? Like, was a Shamael manipulating her or something?
Compulsion?
I don't think so, though. No, I don't think so.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
No, I think there's more. I think it's possible. I think it's possible that the whole scene at the Waygate was a bit of a performance. Not entirely, because I think there's real like pain there, and some of that was actually I don't think that whole thing was worked out ahead of time, let's just say. But I think to a certain extent there may be like we're putting on a performance for Rand aspect to this, because it
absolutely
it gets him really trusting Moiraine way more than he had been. And I don't necessarily think that Moiraine even was involved with that plan, coming up with that plan, right? Like, I don't know that she would have had time to be part of putting that plan together. And I think there's real like shock and pain when Swan forces her to close the Waygate. I think that's real.
Yes.
So I'm not sure that Moiraine is all in on this plan. I don't think she necessarily knows, but I think that like underneath, I'm not convinced that Swan really wanted to keep him in hand. I think there was a bit of a performance going on there. And I wonder how much Lan might have known too, because he knew that they were going to have to use a Waygate. Moiraine did not, but he knew because he had Varen out finding out where it was.
Okay, I have a long, by the way, sometimes I feel like, Rebecca, you and our brains are the same. Like all of these things, I'm just like, you're dead on. So there's a few really clear things in that episode to me that if what Rebecca's saying is not true, I'm going to be kind of upset, because it feels like they intentionally put out these breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And you know, when I made my video about this episode, I presented a few theories. The first theory is we should take it at face value.
Yeah, that's
definitely. They broke up and they had a difference of opinion, and Rand sided with Moiraine and Lanfear, and they went off on their way. And Swan thinks she's Black Aja now, and there's going to be some rift there. Mm-hmm. I just don't believe that's real. The way the episode's set up to show them together in the pilot, the way that they're in this together, there's a few really important things. Swan says, "You've been doing this a long time. From now on, I row beside you." Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Then immediately in the next scene with Rand, they're putting on this show. Yeah. She's like, "I gotta cage you," and Moraine's like, What are you doing? You know, like, to me, it feels very much like their plan. The episode's called Days Damar for a reason. We see people in that episode listening in through holes in the walls.
Yeah.
This is absolutely, and another clue to that is Moiraine says, "Swan, you have all these enemies around you." Mm-hmm. Right? That's part of the plan. Swan knows this. She has to play the role. She has to play the part of the dutiful Amyrlin who's following the law for the people who are literally listening in. That's my feeling on all of that. She knows that most of the sisters that are there with her are Black Aja. She already knows this. I also think that Varen spent all this time trying to find the Waygate, and then Swan just showed up to the Waygate.
Yes. That's another thing I was going to mention.
and it's like, how did Swan know? It's because she and
Yes.
Varen were working together. Varen and Swan and Moiraine worked together with Rand in the book, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Varen and Swan were on the same page. And when Varen said those things to Lyanna, that she was commanded to go and help,
Mhm.
Varen was not lying, because she was. This was
Right.
part of Swan's trick. However, I do believe there was a slight bit of compulsion.
Okay.
And because I think that Varen also had to play both sides. This is full spoilers.
Mm.
And I think she had to inform Lanfear of their plans. And I think Lanfear's line, "a broken Amerlin is better than a dead one," is a very important clue that Lanfear was meddling with Swan in the end there. And I think that's why Swan
Okay.
forced Moiraine to close the Waygate.
That could be. Because
Ooh,
that
I
I,
like
that I don't think was part of any plan that Moiraine knew about, right? Like that's why I'm sort of like that scene at the Waygate. I do think there's something odd there. Like I do think the scene in front of Rand in the wherever they are, the throne room or whatever, that does seem like Moiraine was in on that. And then
Mhm.
the Waygate scene, and especially her forcing her to close the Waygate, it seemed like she wasn't expecting that. Moiraine
And
wasn't
another
expecting
clue
that.
about that is Swan was disgusted by Moiraine suggesting that Alana force Lan to bond with her.
Yeah.
And
that's
then
true.
what did Swan go and do? She did
forced
something
her.
despicable by forcing her with that bond.
And she looked sick while she did it, though. Like she was like really like very not happy that she did that
So
after.
let's say
So,
Lanfear wasn't going to show up. What was their game plan then? To not let them go through the Waygate?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Rand had to go to Falm. They knew that.
Yeah.
They also knew that Swan had to look like she tried to stop them.
Yeah. Right.
So I don't fully. Maybe they were going to try to get Rand to channel the Waygate open. I don't know.
I did wonder why not have Rand channel the Waygate open, maybe because that
Moiraine-
was potentially part of it. Yeah, I could see that.
Moiraine did start off by trying to tell Rand that he was going to have to open the gate,
Yeah.
tear
Yeah.
open the bricks of the wall itself
true.
if he had to.
Yeah.
And then it
That was the
Rand
initial
who's
plan,
like,
you're
no, look, we can get you to do it, you know.
So yeah, for me, Deus Damar, it has to be a great game.
I think there's
we're going
more
to
to
see
this,
some
yeah.
payoff to that very early on. My understanding is the first episode of season 3 is directed by the same person who did the Swan and Moiraine episodes.
You're right.
For
Yes,
seasons
yes.
2
And
and
I
for
like
season
that.
1.
she wrote it. I think the same
And-
writer, at least. Maybe not the same director, but the same
maybe.
writer.
You're right. It's the same
Justin.
writer. It's the same writer.
Yes, same writer.
So they did episode 6 in season 1, which is the big
Mhm.
Swan Moiraine episode.
Yes.
They did episode 7 of season 2, and they're doing episode 1.
Yeah. But no, I definitely feel like there's more here. And so that's why like I can't say that like, oh, I don't like this or that, because it all depends, right?
Right.
If on how this is followed through on. But it does mean to me, you have to somehow have a way for Moiraine and Swan to communicate, I think, next season, because there's not an obvious situation where they would be in the same place again. Doesn't mean they can't come up with something, but I need something between them, I think, in order to follow up on this. And then I think this has to play directly into the coup also, right?
Yeah.
So the way all this played out, Swan made these choices which were intended, at least in part, to protect her position, right? Like that is at least part of why she did what she did. And so what's going to be the fallout from that? Like how is everything that happened in that episode going to lead to the coup? Because I think it needs to like tie directly in to the justification for the coup has to come from stuff that happened in that episode.
Right.
I think
Awesome.
the one change that sort of bugs me is men.
Yes.
They just
Their entire storyline.
I get why they did what they did. They kind of had to with the whole Barney Harris situation. They had to manipulate things in a different way. But I
Mhm.
still feel like she was just done dirty by the end of the season.
I think so.
And I'm like, at least give me something redemptive at the end with men.
Yeah, I really was hoping for more from her as well, and that's probably one of my biggest negatives on the season as a whole. And it's not like a thing that happened. Like I'm not upset with anything that actually happened with her. I just wish there had been more. Like she's in Kyrian. You know, if you're going to bring her to Kyrian, like, can you somehow get her bumping into Rand again? Like that, you know, they had this big moment in season 1. They've both been manipulated by Forsaken in this season. Like they just, I just wanted that to happen somehow, or for her to somehow have, if they could have figured out a way for her to end up in Falm. Also, she could have tried to like redeem herself by helping Matt or something, like just something, you know, I wanted either of those things to happen, and there maybe just wasn't enough time, but she's very much left at loose ends, without like a clear way to reintegrate into the story. And
Yeah, that's my thing. Because one of the things I enjoy in the most is Min and Matt's relationship. Not the very most. I like Brigitte and Matt's relationship the best as far as like platonic friends in the books. But it's really up there. So especially with her and Matt specifically, I do not know how they're going to. They have to reconciliate. They have to. So you know that's coming. I just don't know how they're going to do it. That's the only thing I'm like.
I don't like where they left it. I mean, that's my issue. It just felt sort of out there dangling and you know, no resolution, and sort of left me.
The last we saw of her was her sitting on the floor drunk, right?
That's because and Matt leaves, and I just if we could have somehow gotten one more Min scene before the end of the season, it would have helped. I wish we could have done
the way
that.
I see it, I compare her character in season 2 to Matt's parents in season 1. And by that I mean a lot of people were upset by, they say, oh, they did Matt's parents dirty. That's not how Matt's parents are. To me, they were intentionally setting up Matt's parents to have a better future storyline.
Yeah.
If they follow book 4 and they have Matt's sisters and mother kidnapped by the White Cloaks, that gives Abel Cawthon a redemption arc to go after his family. They are the most important things to him. To team up with Tam Althor and become the Abel Cawthon that we know and love. And to me, this is the same with Min. I'm holding out hope that this just means we're going to get better reconciliation and redemption later.
Yeah,
it has to be that way, right?
I actually don't have, when I say like, if I'm agreeing to an extent that she was done dirty, it's not by her being manipulated by a Shamael. I don't have any problem with that. I think that's very realistic. I appreciate the fact that they're actually showing that Min's visions are horrible for her and that she would want to get rid of them. That this is not what she feels like is a gift. So I appreciate they're leaning into that. I think they're giving potential more of an arc for her as a character. Right. So I don't think that's doing her dirty at all. The only thing I think is doing her dirty is just leaving that dangling where where it's kind of like, oh, well, she was only important insofar as it affected Matt. Like, no, let's have her like have another scene so that this is about her too. And I would have liked to have seen that, but you know, I'm sure they have some kind of plan to reintegrate her. It's possible, again, because she's in Kyrian, that one of the Aes Sedai like scoops her up and she does end up in the White Tower at the beginning of next season. That's the most plausible way to reintegrate her in a similar storyline. But I don't know if that's what they'll do or not. But I would have loved her to have had one more scene so that she's not left out there.
Something that's still kind of confusing to me about the season is, how did Ishamael know about her vision? I mean, they kind of imply that he's spying on people's dreams and maybe he figures things out, but they never really were clear about how he was so sure about how Rand was supposed to die with the dagger.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
And they even kind of implied that vision was manipulated by Ishamael, and that
it's got to be Leandrin.
The vision Min had and what happened didn't match up visually exactly.
Because you don't get the sense that Min would have spoken about that vision to anyone except Matt, like out loud. To say anything about it out loud seems very unlikely that she would have done so. So
I think she would have told Leandrin. I mean, the way they got that.
I don't think she would tell Leandrin. I really don't. She doesn't.
The pressure she was under, I think she would. I mean, she was willing to betray.
Remember,
Matt.
she was being like the Aes Sedai had her under that cell for a very, very long time. Maybe she let something slip, or she was monitored.
It's true. Maybe she had to report things. Like,
I don't even know that she was in
what visions did you see when you saw Matt?
Unless Leandrin used compulsion on her, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think she was actually locked in that cell to begin with. She was only there for Matt's sake. So, you know, when Leandrin knows Matt's going to be carving, send her into the room, into the other cell, to have her be on the other side of the wall. The rest of the time, she could be free to come and go for all we know. We don't know either way. I'm not saying she was free to come and go, but we don't know that she wasn't.
Yeah,
But
agree.
I think
The other
that
thing is like
what
we show.
might
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think what might have been going on is Shamel might have known how Rand would be killed through another means. I said I have foretellings, and there could have been. We don't know that there's no dark prophecies that say specifically this dagger is going to be used. You know, this ancient enemy, ancient friend, as it said in the first book, is going to be used to screw up the dragon. You know, we don't know that Ishii was going on what Min saw. Okay. Now the
Fair.
question, you know, I don't have a problem with him knowing that Min has the ability to see, that she's a seer. Knowing her
definitely knows that, yeah.
specific, you know, knowing specific vision she sees, that I don't see how it would happen. But
Right.
it's quite possible he had other method of knowing what was.
I think she reported it to Leandrin. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense.
So
She was at a point where to get rid of her visions, she would have absolutely probably been like, listen,
I don't know though.
tell her.
Here's the thing. The one thing they've kind of really established about her is that she does lie about what she has seen when she doesn't want to tell people. We saw that in season 1. She does not tell stuff to Moiraine that we know she has seen. We know she lies to Moiraine. And I don't think she trusts Leandrin any more than she trusts Moiraine. I don't think she would offer that up. I think she's pretty big on, unless this vision is about you, I'm not going to tell you. And even if it is about you, I might not tell you anyway. Like, she doesn't like telling them. So I don't think she would offer that up. I think maybe if Leandrin used compulsion, but I don't think she would.
I think
unless compulsed.
I think it comes from her desperation to be rid of it, and that was what they wanted.
I just don't. It wouldn't help. It wouldn't help in that case, right? Like, I don't see how telling Leandrin a vision would help her in any way towards that goal, right?
It gets Leandrin to trust her and gets her one step closer to whatever this resolution Leandrin has.
I saw it the other way around, that Leandrin approached Min and wanted something from her and offered her something. I don't think Min was like looking for someone to help her. I think Leandrin or Shamel through Leandrin came to Min and was like, we want you to do something, and here's the carrot I'm dangling to get you to do what I want.
I can agree with that, but I think Min has always wanted to get rid of her gift. From her in season 1, you can tell she doesn't like it. She doesn't like it. She doesn't like having to share it. I mean, she wants it gone, and you can understand.
Most of the time, she's seeing terribly dark things that she doesn't want to be dealing with.
Yeah.
I guess my concern here is that, just like the Loyal dagger thing, or Loyal being stabbed by the dagger, my worry here is, as much as we're discussing, like, it could be this or that, my worry is that they're just going to sweep it on the rug and never tell us what it meant. That never really explained why Shamel knew.
Yeah,
and that's where, and I feel like this is something the show does more than I would like them to. Is that they often do things without giving us a real good explanation and then don't talk about it ever again. And Robert Jordan was the exact opposite of that. Yeah. Everything connected and everything had foreshadowing and everything meant something. And so this is my biggest concern about the show is, and we all say this, they just need more episodes. They need more time. They need more time. I completely agree. But
10 episodes, please.
They do this thing that I call
not going to happen, though.
TV show shorthand. They for example, combining Geidel Kane with Uno. That makes a lot of sense for a TV audience. Do I love it as a book reader? No. But do I understand why they did it? Yes. It's TV show shorthand. It quickly helps the audience understand how the horn works without having to overly explain it. And I get that, but I want them to explain it. I want pages and pages of exposition from Loyal, like in the books. That's the best part of the books to me, is all the crazy metaphysics.
We still have Ta'veren explained. I do not recall in season 1, and I know for a fact it wasn't in season 2, Ta'veren has never been explained.
Padan Fain explains it to the most extent that we get an explanation. I think he says focal points for the pattern.
That's
all we get.
Yeah, he says it in episode 8 of season 1, and that's the most explanation that we get of it, is him talking to Perrin and saying that all 5 of them are Ta'veren, focal points for the pattern. That's pretty much it.
And then they never mention that word
to forget
again.
That episode.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, they don't seem to want to lean too much into explaining what it means that the 5 of them are Ta'veren, or just But this is what I mean when I kind of disagree with the idea that like they're like dumbing things down, because if they were dumbing things down, they would explain it a lot more. They're not like explaining some of these
See,
things. So
the reason why I'm saying they're dumbing it down is because they're not actually, they seem to be afraid to give any kind of fantasy esoteric explanations, any kind of, delving into, this is what this is, it seems to me that they're afraid the audience will be like, what? And be lost.
So here's my thing. I think a lot of this stuff is there's stages to it, right? So
Right.
you explain just enough, just barely enough to like understand what's going on up to a point, and there's nothing that stops them from adding layers to that explanation later. So like they put the word ta'veren out there, they put that out there in the first episode. They gave a little bit of an explanation for it in the last episode of season 1. And yeah, so we don't really have any sort of, any background on that. But at any point when they want to have an episode where they actually delve into the concept of like, and have it play out, like this is ta'veren in action and you show it, they can do that. And I think that they probably will at some point, but they're in, rather than taking time to do a paragraph explanation for it now, they're like, do we really need to know this now? Probably not. Let's put a pin in that, and when we want to really do it, we will really do it.
The same is true of the two halves of the one power, by the way.
Yes,
they have intentionally not explained it because they're waiting for it to be relevant. And in my opinion, it's relevant from the start, but in their opinion, it's relevant as it becomes relevant to the characters. And if Asmodean isn't in season 3 teaching Rand to some degree, I'll be shocked. I think we're going to start learning a lot more about the metaphysics of the one power. Now, when I say a lot more, they still feel like they cut corners whenever they can, but I do feel like we're going to get some of that. And I think ta'veren is a similar thing, like Rebecca's saying. Yeah. So we do have to be patient. We have to hold out. And also that's what our channels are for, is to over-explain all this to everybody. That's all I do.
Yeah, that's right.
I think a good example is Teleron Riyadh. They were able to bring that up, give you a loose definition, and later on we are going to dive into that.
Yes,
that's a perfect example, because it's like you do these little seeds, little tiny seeds, and then later we're going to build on that. And here's how I know they can do it, because there are so many brilliant examples in this season of how they took sometimes as small as a paragraph from the book and they build a whole episode out of it. Sometimes it's a whole chapter that they take and really make that emblematic of something. But in the case of episode 6, which was so brilliant, they took the entire concept, everything that was so wonderful in episode 6 between Egwene and Rena, and they took it from a tiny little paragraph.
It's like
that
a
was
sentence.
Not even a paragraph. And it's something that Egwene says about something that has already happened. It's off screen
with the picture,
But the seed of that, and they took that and built it out, and they did other things like, that was the smallest one that they made the most out of. But same idea with Nynaeve's accepted test and the way they expanded on that. The Moiraine and Lan scene chapter in The Great Hunt and how they expanded that out into a whole season. And even the character of Rima, who's mentioned and barely appears, she doesn't appear on screen. Like we just hear, well, at this point, she doesn't appear on screen. You just hear about her, but they took that and, built this whole character out of that. So I think they do that really brilliantly when they want to take a small thing and build it out and make it something that works in action on screen. So they can do it. I
agree with you. And the reason episode 5 is my favorite of the season is because they introduced 70 terms from the books. I counted. And some are characters and like city names and things of that nature. But there were I think 60 to 70 brand new terms that had never been introduced in the show up to that point. And almost all of them were said twice to reinforce them for the audience, which was really brilliant. That being said, the next episode, one of the only new terms they introduced was Adem. And not only did they introduce the Adem, but they explained the rules of it very clearly so that the audience understood the situation that Egwene was in. They reinforced it by showing, not just saying it. So I agree that they do that. However, the Horn of Valir, in my opinion, was not explained well enough in the season.
Really?
What do you think?
Several times in episode 8 alone, it was made quite clear that it's what brings the heroes back for the dragon to fight the last
What are the
battle.
heroes? What's
The
the last
heroes of the
battle?
Horn. Okay, well,
So
it
my
made it
point
quite
is,
clear that
my
there's a group
channel.
of heroes. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say my channel is. I try to walk this line of trying to make videos for non-book readers while also winking a lot at book readers. That's what I try to do. And when I succeed, people are like, "Thank you for explaining this to me. I did not get it." And I get a lot of comments from people who just don't have a clue what any of this stuff means. They certainly don't know what Taviran means. They don't know what, the one power. I talked to some friends who told me they watched the show, and I was like, there's two halves of the one power, and they were like, what? I had no clue. They don't, and it hasn't really been explained in the show. But as far as the horn goes, I watched some people's reactions too, and they were like, so what are these ghosts? Like, they didn't get it. They didn't understand how it worked. They didn't understand who they were. None of them were named.
And yet I doubt anybody out there has any issues with understanding the repercussions of a warder losing his Aes Sedai, which they focused 3 episodes on in season 1.
Right.
I have no problem with them focusing on that. I just don't think season 1 was the time and place for it. Like, this season would have been plenty time because they did it all again, and I want to be clear, episode 5 of season 1 is my favorite episode in that season. So I hated it when I first saw it, but I love it. It's the best episode of television, I think, from that season. But we've talked about how all these other concepts, they can explain it later down the road. They haven't explained the two halves of the one power, and yet those are more inherent to the story than warders and the Aes Sedai bond, the warder bond with the Aes Sedai.
Yeah. Except that Moiraine and Lan are kind of the main characters.
I'm like, yeah, kind of not though.
And see, that's what you stick yourself with by focusing and casting the show around Rosamund Pike. I love her in the role, but from the moment they announced Rosamund Pike as the star of Wheel of Time, they already took a wrong turn. The four 5 Emmons Fielders should have been the first people we learned about. Who plays Moiraine and who plays Lan, those are secondary to who the main characters are. They thought they were pulling a Sean Bean with Game of Thrones. We're going to have this great big star to lure everybody in, and so what if down the road we get rid of them? But they're not really. I really don't think they're going to get rid of Moiraine for more than 4 episodes. I don't see her being gone.
I think that is a Rosamund Pike decision. I'm probably in a very small minority in the fandom that thinks that I think she could be gone for most of the show. I really do. I know no one thinks that. I think no one thinks that's possible. But again, now if Rosamund Pike wants to be as involved as she is throughout the whole run of the show, they can find a way to do that. But let's say she doesn't. We're just assuming that she wants to. But I think this is something that she, as an actress, might be like, no, I'm going to go do some other things, and then hopefully come back for the final season, or whatever. Because they could bring her back for like the last episode in like a little one quick
Fields
scene
of Marilor, yeah.
in season 7, like just a shot of her, and then she's they're back for season 8 or whatever. They could do something like that. And if Rosamund Pike was on board with that, why not? I think no one thinks that, and I'm in a tiny minority, but I think you could very easily just not have her in the show at all for several seasons. I'm serious.
I'm in a minority all the time about this show, without being one of those people who hate it for being woke.
But the thing is, I just can't believe that bringing her on as Moiraine was a mistake, because
I don't either.
And yes, they do have to focus more on her as a character because they have this caliber of an actress, and I don't think that's wrong. I really don't. But like I said, I also again am in that minority of not thinking that she's going to be in this show at all for some of the seasons. So
Any other
We-
changes anybody wants to shout out? or
Yeah,
bring up?
it was like okay.
We've been on
No.
changes for a while. Jen,
Yeah.
Bill, anything? Okay.
No, I'm good. Like I said, my
All right.
main complaint was men.
That's
Mhm.
fine. So let's go on to rating. What would your initial rating for the season 2 be as when you first watched it out of 10? I will start, and to be clear, 5 is average. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. That's how I felt my initial rating for the season.
Can you tell me your initial
rating?
rating for season 1?
About the same. I think it might have been I think it might actually been a 5.5. I think if I go back and looked at what I rated when they did the recap with Rajesh on, but I think it was like a 5.5 or a 6 around in there.
5.5.
Was it? Okay. Yeah, because some of the episodes, like the early couple episodes, I really did not like, but the later episodes of the season, I liked a lot more. So it averages out to, I'd say, a 6.
Hmm.
Jen?
7.5.
Okay.
The only reason that brings it down is the Swarane men and like what's going on with the dagger and stuff like that. But and then the Elaine thing was just kind of funny. But and her like but no, it actually was super awesome. Yeah. So I would probably say like 7.5, but the book reader in me is going on a couple of things, and that's the only thing that brings it down. Otherwise
about-
it's great.
What about you, Bill?
My initial was a 9, which was my first season 1. I was around 7.5 to 8, somewhere in that range. This was such an improvement that
It was
I
improvement.
think we got some almost perfect entertainment episodes of television this season. So
Agreed.
yeah, my initial
Agreed.
was pretty high up there.
Agreed.
Becca?
Yeah, I'm a 9. I'm with Bill also. I think that as book fans, we get really hyper focused on some minor stuff, to be honest. This is really excellent
will-
television, guys. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know what you were doing giving it to a 6 when this is like fantastic television, but whatever. Everybody can rate their
Yeah.
own, but to me, what knocks it down, because I'm not even going to knock it down for some like the minor like quibble kinds of stuff, because I just think everything has that. And if you're watching it this intensely and with this much focus, you're going to find some like nitpicky issues with everything. So I don't even really knock it down for that. To me, what I would knock it down for is for the stuff that wasn't there, for the stuff that we don't have time for, because I do think that there are things that would have made it better if we could have had time for some of those things. So for me, that's what knocks some points off. But I think it's excellently made television, and we get a little hyper fixated on things because of our book reference.
How about you,
Absolutely
Lon?
agree. That's the problem. I can't be objective about this. I'm too close. I watched these episodes so many times, and in a way, because I'm a content creator and I've had certain privileges, I'm even more close, and I'm biased in certain ways that I can't separate from how I read
We
things.
all are. I don't like
Yeah.
rating things because
Me neither.
it's just anyway, whatever.
And I resisted rating season 1 for a year and a half, and even when I did finally rate it, I'm not happy with my ratings. And
Ratings
I always
are
give this
stupid.
they really are. And I always give the disclaimer before I rate something. I tend to like things. I just do.
Yeah.
I tend to rate things 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10 always. The only things I rate less than that are things I don't finish because I didn't like them enough to finish them. And so I have a really hard time with that. But what I'm trying to do in my own brain is say, okay, if 5 out of 5 is average and 10 out of 10 is the best season of TV I've ever seen, then I would put it at like an 8 on my first view, because there are some killer seasons of TV that this still didn't match up to. But I think it's my book lover part of me that says it's not as high as it could be. If I was going in totally blind, I don't know. I never read Game of Thrones. I thought some of the seasons of Game of Thrones were really stellar television. And I don't know if I would rate them 10 out of 10.
I was just as hypercritical of that show as I am of this. Hypercritical, the level of hypercritical I get on a show especially in adaptation, is commensurate with how much I love the source material. So if I'm super hypercritical about the Wheel of Time, that's telling you I really, really, really love the books. Like all five of us here. I'm sure most of the people watching this are pretty much going to be big fans of the books.
I hope so. They probably wouldn't understand half of what we're talking about.
Right.
Well, and I have to say, on first watch, one of the things that was hard for me is I watched pretty low quality versions of the show on first watch, and that actually diminished my enjoyment of it. So my overall, after rewatching, is probably higher because I respect it more after going back and finding details and Easter eggs and trying to understand why they do what they do. And all these discussions that we've had tonight only make me like it better because it's like, look what they're doing,
Yeah.
So
I like it better on rewatching and having the whole season too, because like when you're judging it as you go, there's still lots of questions in your mind, like where are they going with this? Like, and at least by the end of the season, some of that is answered.
Right. Also, to be clear, when it comes to rating, I'm not a big fan of it all the time, but for wrap-ups and stuff like that, or a season finale, I'm fine with it. But there's also the fact, you could ask me this same question tomorrow, a week from now, a year from now, and the number I give might be completely different. Because like I said,
notice the episode 5 from season 1.
Yeah, episode 5, I hated. And now it's, so continuing on our ratings, Lauren, rate season 2 as if this is hard, as if you had never read the books. Can you? This
is really hard.
It's impossible. This is a ridiculous thing to do.
It is ridiculous to do that. This is how I'll compare this. I don't know. I know this is a Wheel of Time specific discussion, but I just finished Loki season 2, and I'm not going to spoil anything. But I don't know anything about the comics. Yes, I'm a fan of the Marvel movies. I enjoy them for the most part. I haven't followed all the recent movies as much, but I really liked Loki season 2. And as a fan, I mean, I guess I'm a fan in the sense that I've watched all the movies and I'm invested in the character, but I don't know anything about the comics, and I was just blown away by some of the things they did with that. So I'm trying to think, would the Wheel of Time season 2 have blown me away in the same way? And I think yes. I talked to some people at work that I converted to watching the show who would text me late at night after the episodes and be like, I can't believe that just happened with Egwene, or that ending of the finale was sick. It really had an impact on people in a way that season 1 absolutely did not. So, I think maybe 9 out of 10. Again, I don't know, but it was good TV. Like Rebecca said, it was really good.
Yeah, it is. It is good TV.
So would you match that, Rebecca?
Yeah, I wouldn't change my number, to be honest, because I think this is an impossible question to answer. If I hadn't read the books, some things might hit me better, some things might not hit me as much, right? So some emotional moments might not be quite as emotional if I hadn't read the books. And other things might hit me stronger because I didn't have something I was expecting to, compare it to. So I think between those two things shifting, it would kind of balance out the same personally. And I don't think I'm overly affected because I am among people in the fandom and just, adaptation watchers in general. I'm really into the big changes are necessary. I fully am on board with you cannot tell the story in the same way. You need to be very creative and really rethink the whole thing. So I'm prepared for that.
Bill?
You know how I do mine. I can't separate myself as if I've never read the books. They are such an integral part of me that I can't do that. So I go by my wife, who's never read the books. So I asked her, and she loved this season, thought it was heads above season 1, and she gave it an 8.5. So it's close enough to my 9 that I wouldn't change my score. But she gave it an 8.5, just as strictly television. And it led her to asking me questions about the books, which is always good.
Is she going to read?
She might listen.
Okay.
And I got the Rosamund Pike Eye of the World sitting in the Audible for her, just in case.
Jenn?
I've heard of a lot of stories of people who have finally picked up the books where their spouses have been telling them for years, you got to read these. And it was season 2 that finally convinced them. So it's got to count for something.
Jen?
Mine's going to be kind of long-winded, but here's how I do it. Here's how I separate the books. I'm a young woman who loves fantasy, and I really liked Game of Thrones. And I haven't read any of these books. The Witcher, I love The Witcher. I play the video games. I didn't really like The Witcher. That was the last thing that I saw that came out before. I know season 2 is ending. Henry Cavill's going. I'm a fantasy lover. Where do I go? Wheel of Time. What does Wheel of Time have? Wheel of Time has strong women. Wheel of Time has crazy twists and turns. Wheel of Time has all these different characters that if I didn't like for all these different personality types to latch onto. You've got Perrin, you've got Rand, you got Lanfear, you've got all these different, and if I'm no matter what my personality is, I can latch on to one of these people. Beautiful sweeping vistas. Oh my gosh, look at this. I can escapism. That's what I read for. That's what I like fantasy for. So I'm plopping my little booty in front of the TV with my popcorn. Wheel of Time comes on. It's got to be a 10. What else am I doing? What else am I looking at? First of all, there's no other vent for me right now, which is one of the things that I know Wheel of Time is, I say all the time, Wheel of Time is the biggest excuse show. Oh, there was COVID. Oh, we didn't have Moiraine. Oh, we didn't have, but oh, I'm sorry, but Wheel of Time. Every single time I hear about a rating, it's always with the but or where I can't. But I'm like, but think about what you do have. You do have. There are so many people that want to have escapism right now, and isn't that the reason why Wheel of Time exists in the first place? Is because you had The Witcher and you had Game of Thrones, and what was Amazon doing in response to that? Nothing. So this is actually literally quite why we have the show right now anyway. And there are hard selling on that. I can find zero negative about that. And if I didn't read the books, that is all I have. And they do it well to where I can attach myself with at least one person in the show, even if I don't understand it. And if I'm looking for escapism, is all these things about what does Taverin mean and what does other really mean a lot if I can just escape and see these beautiful things and have these beautiful characters and plot lines. For the LGBTQ community, I mean, I can't imagine what that's like to have that in a fantasy show and potentially have something end up not bad. Hopefully, Moiraine doesn't end up bad. We're still holding on hope, but like, there's so like, I hate how the fact that even the people that are proponents of Wheel of Time want to give excuses for it. Like, oh, but we didn't, it was going for the strike. We had COVID, we have COVID. It's like almost you're apologizing for a show you love every single time I hear somebody talk about the ratings or how it's doing. And I hate that. I'm like, why are we apologizing right out the gate for the show before we even talk about it? Let's talk about what it can deliver on. That not even the fact that nobody else is that it actually hits all those points. If I'm not a book reader, how can it go wrong? So it's a 10. It's a 10. I had to go into that because I don't think it's been talked to it anywhere. So I'll be quiet.
I think that is totally fair. Yeah.
You convinced me. I'm changing my answer.
Like Bill, I have a really hard time separating my brain from the Wheel of Time because I'm 50 now, and I've literally been reading these books since I was 18. That's the vast majority of my life has been spent as a fan of Robert Jordan's books. But if I was to really try to do it, I think I would give it a 7.5. I really think if I had never read the books, I think I would have liked this season more than I actually did. And it's having problems with certain changes, and even when they're just little minor unimportant changes, it still just doesn't sit well with me, and it just hurts
I know.
me.
I'm here to argue with you about them, so don't worry about it.
And that's why I called you my foil a while ago, because you're good at that for me. I need you. So yeah, I'm gonna say 7.5. Now the next question is, how would you rate it as an adaptation? Which you could take that to mean how accurate or just how good of taking this story and making it a version you can tell on screen. You know, how you want to do that is up to you. You can explain what you're doing there. So we'll start with you, Bill. What would you rate it as an adaptation?
Honestly, 7.5, because at the end of the day, Matt's still a rogue, Rand's still the dragon, Egwene is still a teacher's pet. Nynaeve is still really annoying, especially early on. All of my characters are there. Those beats are hit. How they get there isn't so important to me as the fact that they are who they are and they get there.
Okay.
So I'm not as hung up as you are on the bits and bobs that go along with it. I can turn off that part of my reader book brain and let it go. So 7.5 for me. This is kind of a Kubrick situation where he took The Shining, completely left a bunch of stuff out and changed the story, but made a really great film.
Okay.
They're doing the same thing here in my mind. And I'm not angry at him for it. It's different and it surprises me, and I like that.
Lauren?
This is another one that's really hard for me because there's a part of me that wants to be that book purist person who wants to see every sentence of Robert Jordan's translated to screen word for word. I recognize that's not right, and I recognize that's not realistic. But if we're talking about how does it compare to the books, season 2 doesn't in many ways. But I also agree with Bill that it does in a lot of ways. Like how we got there was different, but we did get there. And so I go back and forth on this. When I originally was going to rank season 1, I made a spreadsheet of like 30 things. And I said, okay, how do I feel about the music? 10 out of 10, of course. How do I feel about the costumes? 8 or 9 out of 10 across the board. How do I feel about the action? That was all over the place depending on the episode in season 1, But when it came to book adaptation, I always had lower ratings because it wasn't a 1-to-1 for me.
Right.
Not that I'm expecting that, because you're asking as an adaptation, but in my mind, in a perfect world, it would be 1-to-1. And so that's why I tend to rate that lower. So all of that being said, I don't know. Maybe a 7, maybe around a 6 or 7, I guess. I mean, especially books 2 and 3. We kept being told it's books 2 and 3. It's books 2 and 3. It was just book 2, right?
Right.
There's a little bit of book 3, but
there's even
not hardly
book
any.
1.
Yeah. So because they're not doing it by book, right? No, that's not how they're doing it. So we have to kind of get over that idea. But yeah.
Yeah, that's why I left that part of the sentence as Max wrote it. I left that part of the sentence off because I wasn't focusing on as a part of a book or a specific books. Jen?
I see what you mean about going half and half, because again, like Lauren said, the book purist of me goes, book 3? Random wasn't even in book 3. So it's like literally, and like I don't even see that. But like adaptation could be like, oh, how well did they do it to make it appealing? And that's like way high. So so you're like literally caught in the middle between what does that mean as an adaptation? Are you talking about book purity, or are you talking about how well is it? I don't know. Like I genuinely am confused by the question. Actual.
Take it up with Max.
Yeah,
that's such a personal thing.
Here,
throw away Max.
Don't throw Max under the bus. He's not even here.
I didn't mean to throw him. I'm
no, you're not
trying to answer. Like I genuinely
want
to answer the question. Like
no, I think it's a super hard question because it's very open to interpretation.
Genuinely want to answer this. So maybe I could go both ways. Adaptation, it's very low. I'd probably say like as book purist, like it's probably like a 3, but like as an adaptation is to screen, like to make it like good, because I freaking loved Anavir. Was Anavir even in the books? No. But
no.
Do I want her gone?
She's
mentioned.
No.
She's mentioned in New Spring.
Oh, sorry. I apologize for that. But but do I want her there as she is in the character? Heck yes. So to screen, I would probably say like an 8 or 9. The book's a 3, and isn't that a huge difference? So I mean,
so it depends what you mean by the question.
Yeah. Again, so that's where I'm gonna leave it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Once again, you convinced me. I'm changing my answer. if we're going
Wow.
1-to-1, I agree. It's low. It's like 3
like
or 4.
3.
If we're going good episodes of TV,
Yeah.
you know, there were articles that came out that were saying Wheel of Time gets adaptation right. I remember seeing art, and I'm like, it's true. It's not what I expected, but man, did they do a good job with it.
It's good.
Like,
I mean,
as an adaptation, it's impressive what they've done. So
can I
it's
ask
like a
everyone
9.
a question? Have you seen the Stephen King miniseries of The Shining?
Nope.
I haven't.
It is
but
a
I've heard about it.
1-to-1
No.
adaptation.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, is it better than the Kubrick film? The answer is no, and I am a huge Stephen King fan. Huge.
That's
But that
because
1-to-1 does not work on TV.
it's right. It's right.
Exactly.
It doesn't. That's right. You're not supposed to do the same damn thing because what's the point of that?
And
Anyway.
you can't. If every single
You can't.
Wheel of Time fan had the capability to be a showrunner, there would be, 30 million different versions of the show that would be adapted.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no
Oh, yeah.
such thing as a perfect adaptation.
No,
Yeah.
no. And that's why, like, I don't know, is it my turn to rank it yet?
Sure.
All right. Because here's the thing. I refuse to rate this on the question about how would you rank it as an adaptation on book accuracy, because that is not what makes a good adaptation. You can't just say, oh, well, this version was as close as possible to the source material and that makes it the best. No, because that does not take into account what works for the medium you are telling a story in. And they are so far apart. There is a world of difference between these massive books, 4.4 million words, and 64 hours of television. It's the gulf is absolutely like it's just you can't even fathom, and you can't even compare it to something like Game of Thrones and the amount of words they had to adapt per the hours they had. It's a big difference. They did not have as far to go from the source material to while they had it. But
It also wasn't nearly
Well,
as much fluff.
so anyway, you got to me, I can only answer this question in how does it work in the medium that it's in. Now, originally, when I was ranking this, I my number was a little bit lower than my overall number. But listening to you, Jen, and just from the discussion, Lauren, my number is going to be the same. It's still a 9.
I love this discussion because it really gets me to think about these things with everybody else. And I think we're kind of all on the same page, even though there are different things we expect. Except maybe Glenn.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
With looking
The
at
grumpy old man over there.
Glenn Buey, thank you.
Nice, perfect.
Looking at adaptation, there's 2 ways. There's, I understand why you're saying you can't do it by accuracy. I understand that.
It
I understand
doesn't
that
make a
you
good
feel that way.
adaptation.
Not always, no. Can't even say not even usually. But accuracy-wise, I'd have to say it's probably about 40% accurate. Or at least that's the accuracy range I would put it in. But I don't think that's where I'm looking at for what I would put it as an adaptation. Doing it purely as how is it telling this story on screen, I'd say a 6 out of 10. But to take those 2, and I'm going to split their difference, and I'm going to say a 5 to split, between those 2. So it's another right down the middle, 50-50 for me. So that's where I'd put it as an adaptation. Now, does anybody have a different score that they would put, adjusting if what does he put here? The way Max phrases 5D. Do you have an adjusted rating, with everything weighted, or is it still going to be 9, 10, whatever you had said across the board?
I adjusted a
No.
little higher personally, just because I respect the show more the more I watch it, the more I dig into it.
Okay.
And I feel that way about all media. Like the more you dig into it, the more you get out of it. And so I respect the choices that were made more, the more I think about it. And so on first watch, there's always that knee-jerk reaction, especially as a book reader. There's certain things that are like, oh, that's not how it was in the books. And so my initial reaction is often more negative. And then when I go back and rewatch it and kind of think through why they did what they did, or I don't have that knee-jerk reaction because I'm expecting it. So I'm able to enjoy the choice better, whatever. So for me, it always goes up a bit. So I think I said it was an 8 out of 10 at first. I'd put it up to a 9 out of 10 after diving deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I basically agree. Like, my number is still the same because it's like I was a low 9 and I'm a high 9, whatever. I'm rounding off. But I watching it more, seeing the full thing, I think you get more out of it. It improves, and that's not. I wouldn't say that's true for everything. There are some things that initially I watch it and I'm like, oh, this was so great because I'm reacting to certain things, and then it doesn't hold up to rewatch. When you rewatch and you start to like see more of the details and you're like, oh, actually some of that stuff doesn't work. So not everything does hold up to rewatch or increased scrutiny. And yeah, so but my ranking doesn't change, but yeah, so I'm just bucking the trend and I'm just giving 9s across the board. Refuse to change.
My ranking doesn't really change. It's, when I thought about it, it's still a 6, is what I would give it overall. Jen, Bill, either of you have a change on that?
No, I mean, I enjoyed it just as much on this, my 4th season rewatch, and I still love it.
I will probably say 8, low 7.5, high 8. I would probably say that. And the only reason why it's so lower is because it really actually depends on what they do with Soiraine, and I'm not joking. That hinges a lot of things. Everything else is nitpicky. Screw whatever happened to Elaine. Screw with the whole thing with the daggers. Screw the Horde of Valyr. Whatever, I can deal with all that. But that is a huge plot point. I can't just with that. So
it's so true. I also have a hard time giving something such a high score because I need room for it to get better.
Yeah.
And if I'm putting it at a 9 out of 10 now, I'm like, well, season 3 has to be a 10 out of 10. And then where do they go from there? Like, I want them to always be better. And if
embrace the 9.5.
If we get the quality increase between seasons 1 and 2 each time, can you imagine? I mean, I don't know if we'll be able to get that every time.
No, it won't be every time, but I mean, I think there's still room for that, because I think that if you just look at the source material, right? Like, I think there were some challenges with adapting the source material for this particular season, right? Like, that's why it doesn't really closely follow any particular book, because of just, it's hard to do that. But if they're able to follow book 4 fairly closely in season 3, then could step up even more just from that. So
I love book 4.
I do think season 3 is gonna go up a notch from season 2, but I don't think that's gonna continue. I mean, hopefully it can just kind of hold.
Right.
Steady.
I'm ready for the Aiel waste.
Well,
I'm ready for the Aiel.
We're all waiting for the Aiel. If they handle the Aiel right,
yes,
we're okay.
Smooth
the glass columns for me. That's gotta be.
The glass columns, yes, but for me, what I love about book 4 is everything that happens in Tanchico and everything that happens in the Two Rivers.
I will say though, well, here's one thing though. In a sense, if the show continues to do well and gets better and better, Amazon will have more faith in it and invest more. And in that case, we could see increases in quality and certain things. Things like better CGI, better locations, better quality cameras, whatever it is. So we, in that sense, we like Game of Thrones in the end, they were throwing a lot of money into the dragons and stuff.
Right.
And so I would love to get that kind of dedication for.
Yeah, I can see that. And I'm hoping that like they'll, expand run times a bit more even, but I don't think they're ever giving more episodes because
there's been rumors of fewer episodes. So
almost every episode has been over an hour. I think 1 or 2 episodes have been under an hour. Everything else has been over an hour in runtime.
Did you guys have a knee-jerk reaction to the finale? You were like, I don't know about you, but the first thing I looked at was the length.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started watching, and it started playing the opening title sequence. And I had this very visceral,
me too.
So excited to see the title sequence back, and then so angry that they were taking 2 minutes off of this already short runtime.
I'm like, yes, but no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was going to be longer.
I have to admit, though, this title sequence is a beautiful thing to watch.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, so good.
Speaking of award worthy,
how many man hours would you say that would take? Something like that.
Oh God, I don't even know.
Hundreds,
Many
thousands?
hundreds.
Oh, hundreds easily. I do this kind of work for a living, and hundreds.
Listen to
I'm sure it
numbers.
costs. I'm sure it cost, $5 million or something. I don't know. It was
I wouldn't
probably.
be surprised.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
And
thank
how
you,
many
Lauren.
iterations did they go through?
Yeah.
Thank you, Lauren, for coming on. It has been a joy to have you on. Becca, thank you for coming back. It has been way too long since we've had you on with us. Don't be a stranger. I'd like to have you back more often when you're able. Thank you guys at home for watching. Please come back soon as we kick off we've got some more Stephen King coming your way, and beginning of the year we start up season 3 of The Expanse. So thanks for watching. Please come back, give us a like, subscribe, and don't forget to be awesome.